The cafe was quiet that evening. The smell of coffee and chocolate filled the air. People were laughing, talking, clicking pictures. But on one corner table, a girl sat alone. Her name was Ananya. She was wearing a simple blue dress and holding her phone tightly. Her heart was beating fast. It was her first blind date in a very long time. She looked at her reflection in the coffee spoon and sighed. "Why am I even here?" she whispered to herself. Her best friend had forced her to try one last time. "You never know," her friend had said. "Maybe this time, someone will see your heart." But Ananya didn't believe it anymore. Every time she went on a date, it ended the same way. Fake smiles, cold excuses, and sometimes cruel words. The doorbell of the cafe chimed. A tall man in a black suit walked in. He looked confident and calm. The manager greeted him with respect. Everyone seemed to recognize him. That was Arav, a young CEO, known for his charm and kindness. He looked around, and his eyes stopped at Ananya. She quickly stood up and smiled nervously. "Hi, I'm Ananya," she said softly. He smiled, shook her hand, and sat down. For a few seconds, there was silence. She looked down, feeling the weight of every thought in her head. Then she said something that even surprised herself. "No one marries a fat girl, sir, so let's not waste your time." RF froze for a second. Then he smiled a calm, mysterious smile. "Who told you that?" he asked. Ananya gave a sad laugh. "Everyone. School, college, neighbors, even my relatives. They say people like me are meant to stay single, because the world only loves perfection." Her voice cracked a little, but she quickly hid it behind a smile. "I know you must have better options. You're successful, good-looking, and I'm just..." "Me?" Araf leaned back in his chair, still smiling. "Maybe I came here for you," he said. Ananya frowned, confused. "You don't have to say that to make me feel better."
"I'm not,"
he replied. "You know, I didn't come here for beauty. I came here for honesty. And you've already given me that in one sentence." For the first time, Ananya looked into his eyes. There was no pity there, only kindness. That scared her even more. She wanted to believe him, but years of pain didn't let her. "Kindness doesn't last long, sir," she said quietly. "People get tired of it." Arav looked down at his coffee and smiled again. "Maybe, but I don't give up easily." The waiter came, placed their order, and left. The silence between them was not awkward anymore. It was heavy, full of unspoken stories. Ananya looked outside the window. A couple was laughing, holding hands, taking selfies. For a second, her heart ached. Not for love, but for acceptance. Arav noticed that. "You know," he said gently, "people spend their whole life trying to look perfect. But the real magic is when someone dares to be real." Ananya didn't reply. She didn't know how. Nobody had ever said that to her. After a while, she stood up. "Thank you for coming, sir, but I know how this will end. You'll be polite tonight, and tomorrow, you'll disappear. It's okay, really." She picked up her bag. Arav stood too. His voice was calm, but firm. "Ananya, what if this time it doesn't end like the others?" She stopped. The cafe music slowed. Her heart skipped a beat. Arav smiled again. Not the fake kind, but the one that said he meant it. He handed her his card and said, "Let's prove them all wrong." She looked at the card. His name, Arav, Meta, CEO. Meta Innovations, and felt her world pause for a moment. He walked out of the cafe, leaving her standing there, speechless, confused, and a little curious. The camera would zoom in on her face, half in shock, half in wonder, as a soft voiceover said, she thought it was just another failed date. But destiny had other plans. Fade out. Music rises. The night after the blind date, Ananya couldn't sleep. Araf's words kept echoing in her mind. "Let's prove them all wrong." She kept replaying that moment. His smile wasn't mocking. It wasn't forced. It felt real. But who was this man who spoke like that? Why did he care? Ananya searched his name online. Arav Mehta, CEO of Meta Innovations, a company known for helping young entrepreneurs. Dozens of photos showed him at award functions, business summits, and charity events. But one thing was clear behind every photo. There was the same calm smile. The next morning, Arav sat in his office, staring out the window. The city below looked like a blur of moving cars and rushing people. His assistant knocked, reminding him of a meeting. He nodded but didn't move. His mind was somewhere else. At the cafe, remembering Ananya's words, he had seen hundreds of confident people, but there was something rare in her honesty. The pain in her voice was something he understood far too well, because years ago, Arav wasn't a CEO. He was just a shy boy from a small town. He grew up in a tiny base house with peeling paint and a mother who worked day and night to pay his school fees. His father had left when he was 10. At school, Arav wore secondhand clothes and carried an old bag that squeaked every time he opened it. The rich kids laughed at him. "Poor boy," they used to whisper. "Look at his shoes." Every word cut deep. But Arav learned to hide the pain with silence. When he topped his exams, people started noticing him not because they liked him, but because success made them curious. By the time he finished college, Arav had already built a small software company from his dorm room. Within 5 years, it became one of the top startups in the city. Everyone saw his success. No one saw the nights he cried, the rejections, or the times he almost gave up. And then came the day that changed him forever. He had fallen in love once with a girl named Ria, someone from a rich family. She loved his simplicity, or so she said. They planned a future together. Arav saved for months to buy her a small ring. But when he went to meet her parents, everything broke. Ria's father looked at him with disgust. "My daughter will not marry a man who came from nothing," he said coldly. Ria stayed silent, her eyes avoiding his. That silence hurt more than words. The next day, Arav left the city for a while. He worked harder than ever, not to prove himself to the world, but to prove that being small didn't mean being weak. When he returned, he had changed. The boy who once bowed his head now carried a smile, calm, unreadable, but full of strength. That was the same smile Ananya saw at the cafe. He knew what rejection felt like. He knew how words could break someone. So when she said, "No one marries a fat girl," he didn't hear weakness. He heard truth. A truth he once lived. The next evening, Arav sent a short message to her. "If you're free tomorrow, come to the park near City Square at 5 p.m. I want to show you something." Ananya stared at the message for a long time. Her heart said yes, but her mind screamed no. Still, curiosity won. The next day, she reached the park. Arav was sitting on a bench feeding stray dogs. He looked peaceful, almost childlike. "You came," he said softly. "I wanted to see what this was about," she replied. He smiled, that same mysterious smile. "Good, because this time it's not a date. It's a beginning," Ananya frowned. "A beginning of what?" He looked at her with steady eyes. "Of proving that worth is not measured by looks. You'll see soon." The wind blew softly through the park, rustling the leaves. Neither of them knew this meeting was going to change both their lives forever. Fade out. Voiceover. Behind every calm smile, there hides a storm that once broke someone and built them again. The next morning, Ananya sat near her window, staring at the sky. The park meeting with Arav felt unreal. His words echoed in her head. Worth is not measured by looks. No one had ever said that to her, but deep inside, a voice whispered, "He doesn't know your story yet." Ananya's story wasn't about one heartbreak. It was a journey of hundreds of small cuts that the world gave her, one comment at a time. She grew up in a small town, in a family that cared but never understood her pain. Her mother always told her to eat less, to look presentable. Every festival, relatives compared her to her cousins. She's pretty, but if only she lost weight, they used to whisper, thinking she couldn't hear. But she always did. In school, things were worse. The boys laughed when she ran in sports class. The girls called her teddy bear and pretended it was a joke. Ananya laughed too because crying would make them win at night. She looked in the mirror and whispered to herself, "One day, I'll be enough." Years passed. She studied hard, hoping that grades could cover the scars left by cruel words. She got into a good college, but the world didn't change there either. New faces, same laughter. She once liked a boy in her class. He was kind, funny, and always smiled at her. One day, she finally gathered courage and told him her feelings. He looked at her and said softly, "You're sweet, Ananya, but you're not my type." That night, she cried until her pillow was wet. She promised herself never to open her heart again. After college, she moved to the city, got a job in a design company, and tried to live quietly. She worked hard, stayed late, helped everyone. But people noticed everything except her talent. In meetings, her ideas were ignored until someone else repeated them. In parties, no one asked her to dance. Still, she smiled, because that was her shield. Every day she woke up and told herself, "You can't quit now." But there were moments, small, sharp moments, when it all came crashing down. Like the time her team went to a cafe and a waiter looked surprised when she ordered dessert. Or when a colleague joked, "If you ever go on a diet, we'll lose our lunch partner." Everyone laughed. She laughed too. But that night she skipped dinner. When her best friend arranged that blind date, Ananya almost refused. "I'm tired of being a punchline," she had said. But her friend insisted. Maybe not everyone is cruel. It's how she met Arav, the man with the calm smile. And now, as she sat by the window, she wondered why someone like him even cared. Her phone buzzed. A message from Arav. "Meet me tomorrow at my office. I want to discuss something important." She hesitated but agreed. The next day, she walked into Meta Innovations, feeling out of place among confident people in suits. When she entered his cabin, Arav was on a call. He gestured for her to sit. When he finished, he smiled. "Ananya, I've seen how society breaks people like us," he said. "You faced it for years. But what if your story could help others?" She frowned. "My story? It's just pain." He leaned forward. "Pain can become power if you let it speak. I want to start something, a project about real beauty, about confidence. And I want you to be part of it." Ananya blinked, speechless. "Me? But why?" "Because people will listen to you. You're not perfect, and that's what makes you real." Her throat tightened. No one had ever called her real before. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as the fat girl, not as the quiet one, but as a person with a voice. That night, Ananya stood in front of the mirror again. But this time, she didn't criticize herself. She just looked, really looked. Maybe she thought this was the start of something new. A journey not to change her body, but to change her story. As the city lights reflected in her eyes, she whispered, "Let's prove them all wrong." Fade out. Voiceover. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is believe in yourself, even when no one else does. The next morning, Ananya reached Arav's office again. This time she wasn't nervous, just curious. Arav was already there, standing in front of a whiteboard filled with notes and sketches. He turned as she entered. "Good, you came," he said, smiling. "I still don't understand why I'm here." She admitted, setting her bag on the chair. Arav picked up a marker and drew a circle on the board. "This," he said, "is our world. A world that tells people how they should look, walk, or smile. And this," he drew a smaller circle inside it, "is the world we want to build. One where confidence isn't defined by a mirror." Ananya listened quietly. His words were simple, yet powerful. "So, what's the plan?" she asked finally. He smiled. "We're going to start something called the Real Beauty Movement. Videos, campaigns, workshops, all focused on breaking body stereotypes. And you, Ananya, will be the face of it." Her eyes widened. "Me? Arav, I can't even talk properly in front of a camera." He chuckled softly. "Perfect. That's why you're right for it. People don't need models. They need truth." The next few days were chaos. Araf's team worked day and night to build the campaign structure. Posters, social media plans, event ideas, everything came together. Slowly, Nehan watched them work, feeling out of place. Everyone looked confident, stylish, and fast. She sat quietly in one corner, typing notes and replying to emails. But Arav noticed her hesitation. One evening, he walked to her desk. "You're part of this team, Ananya. Don't hide." "I'm not hiding," she said quickly. "Yes, you are," he replied softly. "You've spent so many years shrinking yourself just to fit into the world. But this time, you're helping change it. So, stand tall." His words stayed with her. That night, she wrote her first speech for the campaign. "You don't need to be perfect to be powerful." When Arav read it, he looked up with quiet pride. "This is your truth," he said. "Let's share it." A week later, they recorded the first video. Ananya sat in front of the camera, nervous, hands trembling. The crew waited. Arav stood behind the lens and said, "Just talk to me. Forget the camera." She took a deep breath. "My name is Ananya," she began. "People told me I couldn't be loved until I became thinner, prettier, different, but today I'm done listening." Her voice shook at first, but as she continued, strength filled her tone. "I am not a mistake to be fixed. I am a person who deserves respect." When the video ended, the room was silent. Then the cameraman clapped softly. One by one, everyone joined in. Araf smiled. "That's it. That's what the world needs to hear." They uploaded the video that night. Within hours, it started spreading. Comments flooded in, some kind, some cruel. Finally, someone said it out loud. One person wrote. Another said, "Why is this overweight woman preaching confidence?" Ananya read them all, her hands cold. "Maybe we made a mistake," she whispered. Arav walked up behind her and said, "Every revolution starts with laughter, anger, or doubt. Don't stop now." She looked at him, surprised. "You really believe this will work?" "I believe in you," he said simply. Days passed. They started workshops for young girls, teaching self-love and confidence. Ananya spoke in front of small groups, then larger crowds. At first her voice trembled, but each time she grew stronger. She shared her story not as a victim, but as a survivor. People began to listen. Some cried, some hugged her after events, whispering, "Thank you." And one night, as she walked home after a long session, she saw her own video playing on a cafe screen. Strangers were watching, smiling. For the first time, she didn't hide her face. She stood there, eyes glistening, heart steady. In his office, Arav watched from afar, a quiet smile on his face. He knew the journey was far from over. But something had begun, something real. The camera would close on Ananya, standing in the city lights, confident and unafraid. Voiceover. When you stop waiting for the world's approval, you finally start living your truth. Fade out. Weeks turned into months. The real beauty movement began to grow faster than anyone expected. What started with one video had now become a wave. Every day, new people shared their stories, young girls, mothers, even men who felt unseen. The internet was filled with posts using the hashtag #RealBeautyLivesHere. Anya, single quotes, his face was everywhere. Posters, talk shows, social media reels. At first, she didn't believe it. "People are actually listening," she said one evening, scrolling through messages. Arav looked up from his laptop. "They're not just listening, Ananya. They're changing." But behind every bright light, there were shadows too. The criticism hadn't stopped. Some called her fake inspiration. Others said, "It's easy to talk when a CEO supports you." One online post read, "Why should we celebrate unhealthy lifestyles?" Ananya felt those words like knives. One night, she sat in her apartment, reading hate comments until tears blurred her screen. Maybe they were right, she thought. Maybe she didn't deserve all this. A soft knock came at the door. Arav stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might still be awake," he said gently. He placed the coffee beside her and sat down. "Why are you reading that?" he asked. "I don't know," she whispered. "It's like, no matter how much I try, people still find reasons to hate me." Arav leaned back, eyes calm. People hated the first person who said the world was round too, he said. That didn't make him wrong. She looked at him, eyes red but smiling a little. You always know what to say, he shrugged. No. I just know what it feels like to be on the other side of laughter. That night, she slept peacefully for the first time in days. Over the next few months, the campaign grew even bigger. TV channels invited Ananya for interviews. She spoke at colleges, corporate events, and community centers. Everywhere she went, people cried, clapped, and thanked her. Her once quiet voice had become the voice of thousands. But something else was changing to her heart. The girl who once hid behind oversized clothes now walked confidently, wearing colors she used to avoid. She smiled easily, laughed louder, even started helping others find their own confidence. Still, whenever people praised her, she always said, "It's not just me." This all started because one man believed I was enough. One afternoon, Arav called her to the office rooftop. When she reached, he was standing near the edge, watching the sunset paint the city gold. "You did it," he said quietly as she joined him. "No," she replied with a smile. "We did it," he turned to her. "You changed lives, Ananya. You changed mine too." There was silence, warm, comfortable silence. Then he added softly, "You taught me something I forgot long ago, that kindness is also strength." Their eyes met, full of respect and something deeper that neither dared to name. A few weeks later, the biggest surprise came, the National Humanitarian Award. The committee had chosen the Real Beauty movement for its positive impact on mental health and body image awareness. When Ananya's name was announced as co-founder, the hall erupted in applause. She stood on stage, heart racing as flashlights blinded her eyes. Arav watched from the audience, smiling proudly. As she began her speech, her voice was steady and strong. "I was once told that no one marries a fat girl," she said. "But today I learned something better. You don't need the world's approval to be worthy of love." The crowd cheered. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. She looked toward Arav and saw him clapping, his smile soft and full of pride. That night, after the event, she stood outside under the stars, holding her award close. Arav joined her quietly. "You made history tonight," he said. She looked up. "No, Arav. We made hope tonight." He laughed softly. "You really love proving people wrong, don't you?" She smiled. "Only when they underestimate me." They both laughed. To people who once carried pain, now carrying purpose, the camera would slowly pull back a city. Lights shimmered below. Voiceover. The world didn't change overnight. But for one girl who chose courage over shame, it finally began to listen. Fade out. The night after the award ceremony felt magical. The city lights sparkled like stars had come down to celebrate. Ananya walked home alone, still holding the trophy close to her heart. Every cheer, every clap from the stage still echoed in her ears. It was a sound she had never heard before, respect. She reached home, placed the trophy on her shelf, and stared at it for a long time. It wasn't just metal and glass. It was a mirror, showing her everything she had survived. But deep inside, something else stirred. A question she couldn't ignore anymore. What did Arav really mean to her? He had believed in her when no one else did. He had turned her pain into power. And now, whenever she thought of her journey, his face was always there, calm, steady, smiling. She smiled softly to herself. "You changed my life, Arav," she whispered. The next morning, Arav called her. "There's an event at our headquarters tonight," he said. "A surprise. You must come." She laughed. "You and your surprises. You'll like this one," he said, his voice warm. That evening, Nanya wore a simple red dress. Nothing fancy, but she felt beautiful in it. When she arrived at the building, the entire lobby was glowing with golden lights. Banners of the Real Beauty movement hung around, with pictures of people smiling, confident, free. A crowd was gathered inside the main hall. Cameras flashed, people clapped as soon as she entered. Arav was on stage, looking right at her. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the microphone. The woman standing there changed not just lives, but the meaning of beauty itself. The hall roared with applause. Ananya froze, overwhelmed. He continued. "She reminded us that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it speaks softly and still changes the world." Eyes filled with tears. She smiled, trying not to cry. Arav walked toward her, holding a small box in his hand. The crowd fell silent. He stopped right in front of her and said softly, "You once told me no one marries a fat girl, sir. Do you remember?" The audience gasped and murmured, recognizing the story that started it all. Ananya's hands trembled as she nodded. Arav smiled, that same calm, gentle smile that began their journey. "Well," he said, opening the box, "let's prove them all wrong." Inside was a simple silver ring, nothing flashy, just pure. Tears rolled down her cheeks as the crowd erupted into applause. For a moment she forgot the cameras, the people, the world. She only saw him. She whispered, "Are you sure, Arav? You deserve someone better." He shook his head slowly. "There's no one better than the one who made me believe in kindness again." The audience stood, cheering louder. Ananya covered her face, laughing through tears. He took her hand. "This isn't about fairy tales," he said softly. "It's about two broken people who stopped hiding their cracks and found light inside them." Months later, their wedding was small and peaceful. No grand hall, no media, just close friends, family, and laughter. Ananya wore a pastel sari, her eyes glowing with quiet joy. Arav looked at her like she was the only person in the world. As they exchanged vows, she whispered, "You gave me back the courage I lost." He replied, smiling, "And you gave me the reason I was looking for." Years passed. Their movement grew. International schools, TV shows, and magazines spoke about it. But for them, the biggest victory was in small moments. Every time a child smiled at their reflection. Every time a woman said, "I finally feel beautiful." One evening, as they sat on their balcony watching the sunset, Arav looked at her and said, "Remember that day at the cafe?" Ananya laughed. "How could I forget? You said it was a waste of my time," he teased. She leaned against him. "Guess I was wrong," he chuckled. "You were brave enough to say it. That's what made me stay." The camera zooms out, the two of them sitting quietly, city lights blinking below. On the shelf behind them, the old coffee spoon from that cafe gleamed faintly, a symbol of where it all began. Voiceover, gentle and warm. She once thought no one could love her. But life proved that love isn't about perfection. It's about finding someone who sees beauty where the world never bothered to look. Fade out. Soft music plays. The end.